Hello everyone and welcome back to Farming Simulator 19. Welcome back to Saibukowo, or as I'm calling it, Chewbacca Farms. Because Saibukowo is very difficult to pronounce. So here's what we have on the agenda today. If I can find the proper one. We are going to get our ducks going. I think I'm going to go with this one here for 40 grand. It can hold 400 ducks. It's the largest duck enclosure that we have available. So I'm going to try to figure out a good spot where I want to sit this thing. I think this is close. See, the problem is I don't own this whole area, only the one little square. That looks pretty good right there. Okay, so there is our duck enclosure. Now we're going to have to buy ducks, and this is going to take a long time to buy 400 ducks. So, do I have anything I can feed them? That's the question. That's ready. This looks good here. Go ahead and buy that for 40 grand. And that way we can get them some food, which is important if they're going to produce any eggs. Alright, so we got white, brown, black, and we're going to buy an equal amount of all three. And it's going to take a long time to do. So I'm going to kind of skip through it a little bit. We don't need any male ducks because I'm going to fill the pen completely full. That way, I don't have to worry about them reproducing, and every single duck will be producing eggs. So I'm going to go ahead and get started buying these guys, and I will cut back at the end and show you what I did. Alright, that is all of this can hold. It cannot hold any more ducks. So let's go to the menu here, and I will show you what we got. We got 133 white ducks, 133 brown ducks, and we got 134 of the black ducks. Because it's technically 133.33 is the proper third of 400, but you can't buy a partial duck, so I had to buy one extra of one of the ducks. Alright, so now we have to bring our harvester over and begin to harvest something for these ducks to eat. Because I want to get food to them as quick as possible so that they can start producing eggs as quickly as possible. Now I have the speed set on real time, so 1 minute of real life equals 1 minute of game life. I did that so that the fields will stay a lot longer before they're flipped back over. So what we're going to do is we're going to do some real fast farming here, where I'm going to speed this up. As you can see, we are cruising. We are moving at 4 times speed. The reason I decided to do this was because the harvester is way too damn slow. It takes forever to get one of these done. And I didn't want to sit for an entire hour episode just doing one field. So this way, for you, it doesn't take very long to get the fields done. For me, it still takes the normal amount of time because this is not how it looks when I'm playing it. I'm playing it at normal speed. But I've sped up the recording so that for you, it's very fast. Which is, I think, a lot better. I have the option also, I could just cut out the harvesting part and, show you the beginning of the harvesting and then at the end. I could do that as well. But this way you see that I'm not using helpers or workers or anything like that. I'm actually doing the work myself. And we can still kind of chat while it's going on. So now I have 400 ducks. I'm going to be feeding them this wheat. And once I get them eating, then they'll start producing eggs for me and I can start selling them. On my agenda for this episode, I need to buy a sell anything mod spot. This is a place where you can sell anything in the game. I need to do that. I also want to try to get all this straw picked up off this field, and sell that. I'm going to be buying a silo. The silo I have my eyes on is this amazing new mod that I downloaded. It holds 700,000 liters of pretty much everything you can harvest. So it's a multi-fruit silo, holds everything, and it will hold 700,000 liters, which is crazy large. It's the biggest one that I have. Now the one I was using is a 500,000 liter multi-fruit silo that I usually use, but it only holds 500,000 liters. This one holds 200,000 liters more, which is cool. And it costs a lot less to buy, because the other one cost me 250,000 to buy. And this one's only going to be 100,000, so we'll be able to get it a lot quicker. That'll probably still be an episode or two before we're able to do that. I got to buy a loading wagon too to pick up the straw. It's going to be a couple episodes before I'm able to buy the silo and everything, because I got to get my money up. I got to get the things I need. This harvest here is going to be strictly for feeding them. I'll make a little bit off the straw, but not much. But the next field I do in the next episode, maybe even this episode, we'll see how it goes. That's going to be profit. I'm going to do a couple fields for just pure cash to make some money. I got to do something to deal with all the trees. They're going to be an issue. I think for this episode, I'm going to buy a chainsaw and I will chop them down with a chainsaw or saw them down. And I will actually load up all the wood onto my trailer here, take it up to the lumber mill, and get all that done. But I think before too long, I'm going to have to figure out something better. There is a machine that I can buy that will cut them down all at once, and they'll just disappear off the map. I won't get to sell the wood to make any money, but it'll also save a hell of a lot of time. Because as you'll see in this episode, if I get to it, it is a lot of work to saw up a tree and to cart it off to the lumber mill, and you don't make a whole lot of money off of it. Now you can spend like $500,000 and buy like the Scorpion. That's one hell of a bad machine, and it'll cut the tree and cut it into 1 foot all the way up to I think 8 foot increments, and then you can sell it that way. So that makes it a lot quicker to do. But in order to make back the money that I would spend on that thing, I would have to cut every tree on the map just to make back what I paid. So I think the machine that I want is, I think, 250,000, something like that. It's still a lot of money. And I won't make any of it back, so it's just going to be a loss. But it will make it much easier to get rid of all these trees as we go, because they're just in the way. It's a pain in the ass trying to harvest with the trees on the field, because you bump into them and you mess up your line where you're trying to kind of go straight. That gets all screwed up. It's a big pain in the butt. So I got to get rid of the trees. Now I'm not going to be doing any kind of real cheating per se on this gameplay. I'm not going to have a government subsidy where I make a lot of money every hour, all that kind of stuff. But I might end up doing that just to get the machine to cut the trees, and then that's it. And the only reason I say that is because I'll make zero money back off of that machine. And in order to make the money to buy it, it's going to take multiple episodes to get that kind of cash built up. And it's going to suck to do that and then have to start all over again money-wise. So I might do that. I'll come up with some cockamamie BS story to tell you, like, you know, I got a government contract to clear all the trees on all the fields, and they're going to let me use this machine, or something, so the storyline has continuity, so it's not so bad. But I'm just letting you know ahead of time, I'm probably going to do that. But for the remainder of it, I won't cheat in any money at all. In a way, it's kind of a payback thing, because They shouldn't have put all these stupid trees on the fields like this. It's ridiculous. All right, here's the multi-selling station that we're going to be buying and putting right over here somewhere. I got to figure out where I want to sit it. I need a place where I can kind of drive through and sell and be able to drive through the other end. I don't want it to be blocked by anything, but I also don't want to take up any good real estate to where I could potentially put something else, because I don't have a whole lot of space here, and I want to be able to put the silo in as well. I'd like to be able to get at least one more animal type in here, but I just don't see that happening unless I buy more of the surrounding area. I think this will work right here. This is fine. So I'm going to be putting the silo there once I buy it, and then I want to do goats as well. Alright, we're going to pick up all of this straw and sell it off. And I'll probably fast farm this too, like speed it up, because it's just going to make it easier. There we go. But I want to get goats going, and I want to get cows going. I've got ducks going, and I'm probably going to do sheep as well, because sheep, goats, and cows will all take grass and silage and all that kind of stuff. Sheep will just take grass or hay. The goats will take grass and silage, and then I'm going to need to make total mix rations for the cows. And that's just silage and hay mixed. There's a really cool mod that I'm just dying to play with that actually makes total mix rations for you. It's like a silo like this, but you empty in to the silo hay and silage, and it mixes up the total mix rations in the silo for you. And then you can just empty it out of the silo into your trailer and put it in your other silo, or just leave it there as storage if you want to. It's a really, really neat looking mod. I haven't got to play with it yet. I just downloaded it. There's two different sizes. There's one that is, I think, 100,000 liter capacity, and then there's one that is 250,000 liter capacity, if I remember correctly. Since I have a massive silo that I'm going to be buying anyway, I'm not concerned about having the larger silo to make total mix rations. I can do perfectly well with the smaller one. So that'll make it a little quicker and easier to buy, because it won't cost as much. And it won't take up as much room. And I'm fine with that. I'm fine with only 100,000 liter capacity on that. I was going to run over and play with the ducks a little bit, but then I remembered that I have to be in the tractor for it to actually empty and sell. Alright, so let's pull over here and let's get out and look at these ducks, because I haven't got to look at them really up close. Isn't that neat? I love how the animation of the gate is. That's so cool. I just noticed that thing looks like it was made out of a pallet. Alright, there's our brown ducks, and our black duck is walking away over there, and we got a little white duck over here. Got another one over here. Let's look at him. Isn't he cute? Take a picture of him. Whoa! It's like a Matrix duck. You see that? That was awesome. I just love this. This is so cool. We never had ducks before on this game. It's just this map. With this map, we got ducks and we got goats added. And I'm really, really stoked about it. I can't wait to buy the goats and get to look at them. I did a single video on this map where I bought ducks and goats, and it was going to be the beginning of a gameplay, but when I was doing, like, I think the third episode of it, because I record these a couple at a time, and I was trying to save, my power went out here at the house because we were having a storm, and I should have known better than to try to play when we were having a storm, but I got away with it on the first one, and I thought, why not? And that's why not, because the power went out. And if the power goes out while you're trying to save on some games, your game is gone. And that's what happened. I no longer had the save file at all. It just completely erased it. So I had to start over again. Now, it wasn't such a big deal because we were on the first episode. My sawmill is down here. I need to go down there once I cut up these trees. But we were on the first episode, so it wasn't a huge deal. And since I had to start over again, I figured we would do it on start from scratch mode, which is the hardest mode. That way we only start with a little bit of money and we don't have any property, any machinery, we don't have anything. We gotta buy a chainsaw. Gotta go with steel. Always go with steel. Best chainsaw on the market, in my opinion. Now you'll get an argument from some people, but most rednecks like steel, if you can afford it. They're not the cheapest chainsaw on the market for sure, but they are really good. I love the way the chainsaw sounds on this game. It's amazing. So now what we have to do is we have to clear all of the limbs and stuff off. This is a fairly large tree, so I'm not exactly sure how many of these are going to come off and how many of them aren't. I might have to actually cut the limbs off, like full on saw them, because they're not going away. Because they're fairly large. The smaller stuff, when you just kind of barely click it, it just clears all the smaller stuff off and it disappears, but the bigger stuff does not do that. I'm going to kind of cheat here and push this more onto the field that I own. Because if you're not on the field that you own, it will not allow you to saw it at all. So you got to have it on your own property. That's something new to Farming Simulator 19. It used to be you could cut trees and do stuff like that on anybody's property. It didn't matter. So literally you didn't have to buy anything. You could just go cut down forest and cut down whatever you want. If you're a person that's into forestry, and make money off of the trees on somebody else's land. Which, when you think about it that way, it's kind of messed up, you know? It makes sense that you would have to own the property if you're going to cut trees on it. But for whatever reason, that was not the case on any of the Farming Simulator games until this one. Now you see how a lot of that disappeared? That's because it's too small and it's not going to be worth any money. If it stays behind, that means when you sell it, you'll get some money out of it. That's a hell of a shot. You see that? I'll play basketball with this stuff as I go. You can see how the smaller limbs are kind of disappearing as I do this. I don't know how much of this I'm going to bother with because there's so much of it that's not going to go away. So I might just do this as I break it down. Because this is going to take forever doing it this way. That cleared that whole big mess off. That was nice. Trying to clear away some of the garbage so that I can kind of see what I'm doing. I'm not going to try to get every little limb and all that kind of stuff off right now. But I'm going to clear away some of it so that I can see what I'm doing. Because otherwise, it's just a big mess when you're trying to cut it up. Alright, I think that's close enough. So now we're going to actually get to work on this and start breaking it down. Now, there's no way I'm going to load this piece that I'm cutting. It's going to be way too big. As you can see, when I try to grab it, it says object too heavy. So what I'm going to have to do is cut this into smaller chunks. And sometimes you can get away with cutting it in half like this, and sometimes you gotta cut the halves in half. It all depends. This time I think I'm gonna get away with it, but on some trees you won't. It all depends on how heavy the piece is that you end up with. That's so heavy I can't throw it. You see that? I tried to throw it in, and I just dropped it on my own head. All right, so we're going to have to kind of do it this way and drop it in, because that's just way too heavy. Eventually, I'll get to the point to where they won't be as heavy because they will be further up the tree, and then I'll be able to start chucking them, which will be cool. Yep, that's still too heavy. That didn't go anywhere. If you come around to the side, it's a little easier because you don't have that peak. Now, one problem with hand loading the trailer this way is it will get full in a single area instead of filling up like all over. It'll only fill up in the area you drop the stuff. So what you'll have to do is actually get in and drive forwards and backwards and kind of rock it a little bit, and that will cause the wood that's inside of it to shift. Oh, that was almost in. I couldn't do that again if I tried. That is perfectly balanced on the rim. I'm going to knock it in with this one. Nope. I thought maybe I could hit it and knock it over, but that didn't work. Still too heavy. But you'll see here in a few minutes I'll have to do it. And what you do is you just drive forwards and you drive backwards. And what happens is it settles out the load. Because this game has fairly realistic physics. And inertia states that an object in motion will remain in motion unless acted upon by another force, such as gravity. It doesn't have to be gravity, it can be any other force that is strong enough to stop that object from moving or slow it down. So much like real life physics, in this game, when these trunks or pieces of wood start moving because you're moving forward, when you suddenly stop, they're going to keep moving just like they would in real life. So by doing that back and forth a little bit, you can kind of maneuver the chunks of wood in there to where they will slide forwards and backwards and kind of settle. The pieces that are up higher will fall down and just settle into place. And you'll have to do that a couple times as you load your trailer up. That was a hell of a shot. Did you see that? I am one of the greatest pieces of wood basketball players in the world, I think. I don't know if there's anybody else that does this than me, but it's a little game I play when I'm cutting wood, is trying to make the shot into the trailer. Just kind of breaks up the monotony of it. And it's funny because I actually do that in real life as well when I'm cutting wood, but the exception there is I'm not throwing it into a trailer. I'm throwing it into the back of my pickup truck. And you have to be a lot more careful when you are throwing it in the back of your pickup truck. Now, I'm not talking about dents in the back of your truck, because any redneck worth anything has dents in the back of his truck from throwing wood, throwing deer, throwing brick, throwing whatever into the back of the truck. You're not worried about that. But the problem is wood, believe it or not, bounces. And it bounces quite easily, actually. So when you throw it in the back of your truck, what's going to happen? The first couple pieces is not a big deal. But as you start getting closer to full on your truck, your wood is bouncing off wood that's already in the bed. So when you throw it and it bounces, what happens a lot of times, because you're throwing it towards the truck, is you'll get a bounce that will throw it right into your back window, and you'll bust your back window out of your truck. Now, I personally have never busted the back window out of my truck. Did I make that or not? I think I did. But my Uncle Billy, you've heard me talk about my Uncle Billy before. My Uncle Billy has busted several windows out of the back of his trucks. Multiple trucks, multiple windows, multiple times. You would think that he would figure out to do what I did. When I'm throwing wood in the back of my truck, I never bust my window out. That's not because I am an expert wood thrower, although I am very good at it. And it's also not because I am incredibly lucky. The reason I have never busted a window out of the back of my truck, where he has, is because I block the back window of my truck when I'm throwing wood in it. I will take a piece of plywood that I have cut to the proper height and the proper length, and I will just sit it in front of the back window before I begin throwing wood into the back of the truck. Now, in doing that, what I'm doing is I'm shielding the back window. Now, I guarantee you, if I took a piece of wood and I just chucked that sumbitch as hard as I could at that piece of, that was a terrible shot, at that piece of plywood, I would probably still break the window. But what it does is it protects from a bouncing piece of wood that isn't moving very fast from breaking your window. So that is a definite problem. See, we used to sell wood. My grandfather sold wood, and my uncle sold wood, and I sold wood. And what we would do is we would buy loads of wood, like full trees that had been logged. So they're just a log. All the little limbs are cut off, and it's just a log. And we would buy loads of those. And they would bring them with a semi-truck. And it's a big, giant trailer that has a bunch of logs on it. And they would pull up and they would unload those logs with this crane-like thing onto the ground into an area we had set up for it. And then we had our wood splitter right next to it. So literally, we would have a giant pile of trees that had been cut down laying there. And we would just go and cut those pieces into smaller chunks with our chainsaws. And then I would grab those chunks, which are still rather heavy and large, and I would bring them over and sit them by the wood splitter. And then Grandpa, who his job was to sit on the nice comfy chair at the wood splitter and just simply split those big pieces into smaller pieces that we could sell. And so that's what he did all day. He would take the giant piece and he would cut it in half, and then he'd turn it and he'd cut that in half, and then sometimes he'd cut those halves in halves also, depending on how big around the chunk was. And then he would just kind of throw them over onto a pile. And we would just do that. That's how it works. And then when it's time to sell the wood, you go to that pile and you take the wood off the pile and you load it into the back of the pickup trucks. And that's all you do. 2 pickup loads equals a cord. So if somebody wants a cord of wood, you bring them 2 pickup loads of wood, and that's a cord. And that's what we did. We would sell wood, and we also did mowing and landscaping and construction jobs, carpentry jobs. My grandpa had his own business. It wasn't like a big time business. It was like a handyman bit, basically you just call him to paint or to do drywall or to do whatever. He could do anything. And that's how he made his living. And I worked for him when I was younger, and all of his sons worked for him as well, all of my uncles. We all did it. And basically what working for Grandpa was you would stand there holding a entire sheet of drywall over your head as he slowly tried to screw it up to the studs in the ceiling. Doing drywall on the walls was way easier, but doing the drywall on the ceiling really, really sucked, because it took him several minutes to get each piece of drywall anchored so that it would stay and not fall down. And it may not sound like a lot, but holding an entire sheet of drywall over your head and pressing up on it fairly hard. As you can see here, I've got a good amount, but I'm going to try to get the rest of that in there. But holding that up with pressure on it so that he could screw it in place was a lot of work. I mean, that was hard. Your arms would start shaking and you would start feeling like, oh my God, this is terrible. Now I'm a big old mountain of a man. So for me, it was a lot easier to hold that drywall up than it would be for other people to do. But it still wasn't easy. Don't get me wrong. Just because I'm big doesn't mean that I don't get tired too. I mean, my arms get tired just like everybody else. So when you're thinking about you're doing the drywall on a house, you're doing every room, you're doing all the walls, which isn't bad because you just kind of carry the drywall in, put it in place, and hold it there against the wall as Grandpa, attaches it. But you're also doing every ceiling, and at the end of the day, man, you're hurt. You are hurting for certain. And I did that, and also we would help him paint if that's what the job was. Painting was something that I never really enjoyed all that much because he would paint entire houses. Like, he would do indoor painting too, but his specialty was painting houses and churches and all those kind of things. And when you're doing a church especially, you got to do the steeple and everything. So you're talking about you're going all the way up on top and securing a rope to the top of the steeple and like dangling off that thing like Spider-Man and painting. And Grandpa would do it all day long, and he never had a problem with it, but it scared the hell out of me. I'm afraid of heights, and I'm not really afraid of being up high. It's the getting on and off of ladders and the being over on the edge that kind of gives me the heebie-jeebies. So for me, those jobs were not a lot of fun. I mean, I did what I had to do because I had to make some cash, but it wasn't my favorite thing. All right, so that is all of the tree done. So now we're going to take this over to the lumber mill and sell it off and see what we get for one tree. All right, cover this up and we're off, and I'll meet you when I get over there. All right, we are here at the lumber mill. This is actually my very first time being here. I've never been here before. It's my first time seeing it, and it is really cool looking. I like how they got all the big trees there, and they got some junk cars sitting over. This is really, really cool looking. All right, so you just walk up to this trigger, and you sell your wood. So I got $4,685 for that entire trailer load of wood. And that took a hell of a long time to cut all that up and put it all in the trailer. And I have to do that for every tree on the field. I am not looking forward to that. But it is what it is. So I'm going to do all of that off camera, because this episode is just about over. We're pretty much out of time. So I'll cut up the rest of those and bring them over and sell them off and all that kind of stuff off camera. And then we will start fresh next episode with a brand new field. So if you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And thank you for watching and hanging out with me. Until I speak to you again, love many, trust few, and do harm to none. God loves you, and so do I. Bye-bye.